Welcome to our video on how to win every argument. In today's world, effective communication and persuasion skills are more important than ever. In this video, we will explore some powerful techniques that can help you come out on top in any argument. Let's dive in. In the world of debates and arguments, there is a technique that is often employed to sway opinions and discredit opponents. It's called exaggeration, and it involves misinterpreting an opponent's position to make it sound ridiculous. First, let's define exaggeration. Exaggeration is the act of amplifying or overstating certain aspects of an argument or position to make it appear more extreme or absurd than it actually is. It is a rhetorical device used to create a sense of disbelief or incredulity towards the opposing viewpoint. So, why do people use exaggeration in arguments? Well, the purpose of exaggeration is to undermine the credibility and validity of an opponent's position. By presenting their stance in an exaggerated manner, one can make it seem illogical or even laughable. This tactic is often employed to sway the audience's opinion in favor of the person using the exaggeration. Now, let's discuss some techniques for misinterpreting an opponent's position. One common technique is called straw man. This involves misrepresenting the opponent's argument by simplifying or distorting it, making it easier to attack. Another technique is reductio ad absurdum, where an argument is taken to an extreme and exaggerated to the point of absurdity. By doing so, the opponent's position is made to seem unreasonable or impractical. To better understand how exaggeration is used in arguments, let's explore some examples. In a debate about gun control, one side might claim that any form of regulation will lead to a complete ban on all firearms. This exaggeration aims to create fear and opposition towards any kind of gun control measure. Similarly, in a discussion about climate change, one might exaggerate the impact of individual actions on the environment, making it seem futile to make any changes. But what is the impact of exaggeration on the outcome of an argument? Well, exaggeration can be a double-edged sword. While it may initially persuade some people to adopt a certain viewpoint, it can also be detected and criticized by those who recognize the manipulation. Exaggeration can damage the credibility of the person using it, as it undermines their integrity and honesty. Its purpose is to sway opinions and discredit opposing viewpoints. Techniques such as straw man and reductio ad absurdum are employed to achieve this. However, exaggeration can have both positive and negative effects, as it may initially persuade some but can also be detected and criticized. It is important to be aware of the use of exaggeration in arguments and to critically evaluate the validity of the claims being made. There exists a technique known as the Moe and Bailey. This technique involves presenting a reasonable, often uncontroversial argument, called the Moe, in order to defend a more extreme or controversial position, known as the Bailey. The Moe and Bailey technique can be seen in various forms of discourse, from politics to personal debates. Let's start by understanding the Moe and Bailey technique itself. Imagine a castle surrounded by a field. The castle, representing the Bailey, is the position that someone actually wants to defend. It is often extreme or controversial. The field, on the other hand, represents the Moe, which is a more defensible and less controversial position. When faced with criticism or pushback, the person using the Moe and Bailey technique retreats to the Moe, which is easier to defend. It's a clever way to manipulate opinions without directly confronting the more contentious aspects of their argument. Now, how can we identify when someone is using the Moe and Bailey technique? There are a few telltale signs. First, look for inconsistencies between the initial argument and the later, more extreme position. If there is a significant shift in tone or content, it could be a sign that the Moe and Bailey technique is being employed. Additionally, if someone consistently retreats to a more defensible position whenever faced with criticism, it's likely that they are using this technique. So, what can we do to counteract the Moe and Bailey technique? Awareness is key. By recognizing when this technique is being used, we can question and challenge the person employing it. Asking for clarification, pointing out inconsistencies, and demanding evidence can all help expose the underlying extreme position. It's important to hold people accountable for their arguments and not let them hide behind the facade of reasonableness. Lastly, we must consider the ethical implications of using the Moe and Bailey technique. While it can be a powerful tool for persuasion, it can also be seen as manipulative and dishonest. By using this technique, individuals are essentially deceiving their audience, leading them to support a position they may not actually agree with. It's important to approach argumentation with honesty and integrity, as trust and credibility are crucial in any meaningful discourse. The Moe and Bailey technique is a clever and often manipulative way of presenting a reasonable argument to mask a more extreme or controversial position. By understanding its mechanics, advantages, and how to identify and counteract it, we can become more discerning consumers of information and engage in more honest and meaningful debates. So, the next time you encounter an argument that seems too good to be true, remember to look beyond the Moe and see if there's a hidden Bailey waiting to be revealed. In the world of debates, discussions, and even everyday conversations, there exists a powerful strategy known as endless questions. It is a technique that involves overwhelming an opponent with a barrage of questions to confuse or unsettle them. This strategy is based on the premise that by bombarding your opponent with a continuous stream of questions, you can put them on the defensive and prevent them from formulating coherent responses. By asking questions one after another, without giving your opponent a chance to catch their breath, you can create a sense of overwhelm and confusion. This can ultimately lead to your opponent losing focus and making mistakes in their arguments. It is crucial to plan your questions in advance. Think about the points you want to make and craft your questions accordingly. Make sure that your questions build upon each other, gradually increasing in complexity and difficulty. This will make it even harder for your opponent to respond effectively. Timing is also key when employing the endless questions strategy. Choose the right moment to unleash your barrage of questions. It's often best to strike when your opponent is least prepared or when they seem vulnerable. By catching them off guard, you increase the chances of overwhelming them and gaining the upper hand in the conversation. Now, let's explore the psychological effects of overwhelming an opponent with questions. When bombarded with a constant stream of questions, the human brain can become overloaded. Cognitive resources are stretched thin, making it difficult for your opponent to think clearly and respond effectively. This can lead to frustration, anxiety, and a decreased ability to articulate their thoughts. By exploiting these psychological effects, you can gain a significant advantage in any argument or debate. However, it's important to note that the endless questions technique is not without its drawbacks. When used against you, it can feel overwhelming and intimidating. It can be challenging to stay composed and respond effectively under such pressure. To manage this strategy when used against you, it is crucial to remain calm and focused. Take a moment to collect your thoughts and address each question systematically. By maintaining your composure, you can regain control of the conversation and prevent your opponent from derailing your arguments. While it can be an effective tool for winning arguments, it can also be seen as manipulative and unfair. Overwhelming your opponent with questions may prevent them from expressing their viewpoints fully and hinder genuine dialogue. It is essential to use this strategy responsibly and with respect for the principles of fairness and open-mindedness. By overwhelming your opponent with a barrage of questions, you can unsettle them and gain the upper hand. However, it is crucial to use this technique ethically and responsibly, considering the psychological effects it can have on both parties involved. So, the next time you find yourself engaged in a heated conversation, remember the power of endless questions. There is another powerful technique known as control the metaphors. This technique involves framing the debate in a way that makes your position seem more favorable. Today, we will explore the various aspects of this technique, from its introduction to its ethical considerations. Let's start by understanding the importance of metaphors in shaping perceptions and understanding. Metaphors are powerful linguistic tools that help us make sense of complex ideas by comparing them to something familiar. They can shape how we perceive a situation, influencing our emotions and judgments. Now, let's delve into the techniques for controlling metaphors in an argument. One common method is to strategically introduce metaphors that align with your position. For example, if you want to argue for stricter immigration policies, you might use metaphors that frame immigrants as invaders or threats. These metaphors evoke feelings of fear and danger, making your position more persuasive to those who share those concerns. Another technique is to challenge and reframe the metaphors used by your opponents. By highlighting the limitations or flaws in their metaphors, you can weaken their arguments and strengthen your own. For instance, if your opponent uses the metaphor of a war on drugs, you could counter by emphasizing the importance of treating addiction as a public health issue rather than a battle. Controlling metaphors can have a significant impact on the persuasiveness of an argument. When used effectively, metaphors can evoke strong emotions, create vivid mental images, and simplify complex concepts. This makes it easier for the audience to understand and relate to your message. By controlling the metaphors, you can shape their perceptions, making your position more compelling and memorable. However, it's important to consider the ethical implications of manipulating metaphors in debates. While metaphors can be powerful tools, their misuse can lead to misrepresentations, stereotypes, and manipulation of public opinion. As debaters, we must be mindful of the potential harm that can arise from distorting reality through metaphoric language. It is crucial to use metaphors responsibly and with integrity, ensuring that they accurately reflect the complexity of the issues at hand. Control the metaphors is a technique that allows debaters to shape the perceptions and understanding of their audience. By strategically selecting and challenging metaphors, they can make their position more persuasive. However, it's essential to approach this technique with ethical considerations in mind. Metaphors should be used responsibly, reflecting the complexity of the issues and avoiding harmful misrepresentations. Now let's explore the strength of common sense and how it can be used to undermine complex, reasoned explanations. Common sense arguments may seem simple, but they hold a significant role in shaping our understanding of various topics. So, what exactly do we mean by common sense arguments? Well, common sense refers to the basic, practical knowledge that most people possess. It's the kind of reasoning that relies on everyday experiences and observations rather than formal education or specialized knowledge. The significance of common sense arguments lies in their ability to challenge complex explanations. Sometimes, these complex explanations can be overwhelming or difficult to understand for the average person. That's where common sense comes in. By using simple, relatable examples or analogies, common sense arguments can help bridge the gap between complex ideas and our everyday understanding. But how do common sense arguments actually undermine complex explanations? The key lies in their simplicity. Common sense arguments often rely on intuitive reasoning and basic assumptions that resonate with a wide audience. They tap into our shared experiences and perceptions to make their point. By doing so, they can challenge the validity or credibility of complex explanations that may seem disconnected from our everyday reality. To employ common sense arguments effectively, several techniques can be utilized. One approach is to use vivid and relatable examples that the audience can easily grasp. These examples should highlight the flaws or inconsistencies in the complex explanation being challenged. Another technique is to use analogies or comparisons that draw parallels between familiar situations and the topic at hand. This helps to make the argument more accessible and easier to understand. However, it's important to note that common sense arguments are not foolproof. They can be countered with reasoned explanations. When faced with a common sense argument, it's essential to respond with well-reasoned and evidence-based counterarguments. This involves breaking down the complex explanation into digestible parts, providing supporting evidence, and addressing any misconceptions or oversimplifications that may have been made. Lastly, we must also consider the ethical concerns related to the use of common sense arguments. While they can be a powerful tool for engaging and persuading audiences, there is a risk of oversimplifying complex issues or spreading misinformation. It's crucial to use common sense arguments responsibly, ensuring that they are grounded in accurate information and used to promote understanding rather than confusion. Common sense arguments have the strength to undermine complex, reasoned explanations by tapping into our shared experiences and perceptions. They can be effective in challenging complex ideas and making them more accessible to a wider audience. However, it's important to respond to common sense arguments with well-reasoned explanations and consider the ethical implications of their use. And that's a wrap on our video about winning arguments. Before we go, I just want to say a huge thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a like, subscribe to our channel for more great content, and don't forget to leave a comment with your thoughts. Your support means the world to us. Until next time, take care.